Let's talk Daily Wire for a moment here.
Okay.
So we have Ben Shapiro, one of the biggest conservatives. You're watching a real fracture in the MAGA movement. We're here interviewing some DNC chair candidates. And these are the folks that are going to be running the party, especially in the interim when there is no like president as a leader. These people are going to be doing a lot of the logistical stuff, a lot of the planning, organization. And this is a race that really matters. And it's often like under people's radars. And I think that it's important and good for new media people, such as yourself, to be involved in this kind of stuff. So thank you that you're here.
So to be clear, I've been streaming for 15 years.
Yeah.
So I take a little bit of umbrage with the term new media.
As opposed to old media and legacy media.
Yeah, that's me.
What do you think about legacy media?
I think legacy media is great.
You like MSNBC? Do you watch it?
Rachel Maddow a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, she's earning her only $25 million a year now instead of $30 million. Tim Pool was very salty about that.
Tim Pool's new media. And frankly, I think there's a lot of...
Frank have to do this.
Stop. You don't need to go there.
We don't. Real quick, somebody's saying, first of all, I have a belt coming, so stop.
Oh, no, I already noticed.
Yeah, number one, there's a belt on the way. So people are saying my mic is a little bit quiet. Okay, cool. They're working on it. Wait, real quick. Okay. The DNC chair.
Yeah.
Big position, behind the scenes. Nobody really knows like what's going on. One thing I've learned over the past few years, even about myself, is nobody knows about anything having to do with civics or the country or anything else. You mentioned in the interim, you kind of have these like really big party positions. If you have a majority in the House, it might be your House Majority Speaker,
right.
Or it might be the chair of your Democratic National Committee or Republican National Committee. What do you think are like big things that people should care about that come from the DNC? I
think for sure media engagement, messaging, and you know that's like a big talking point is who's the next Joe Rogan of the left. But it really, like in terms of getting the message out, outreach, building relationships with, and like having a on the ground strategy as well for getting the message out and supporting the candidate. And that I think is something that you've always done, no matter what your criticisms might be of the Democrat who's running or whatever. You don't make any apologies for who you want to support in the general election. You've done the canvassing in Georgia. You've done it, during the
Georgia, Omaha, Wisconsin.
Yeah. Ohio,
maybe.
Yeah,
all the states kind of run together to me. I'm going to be honest.
And so I think the DNC chair is a position that is going to be essential for that kind of outreach and making sure that the Democrats are staying on top of the game. The Republicans, say what you want about them in terms of policy coherence, in terms of the viability of their candidates. They've had some electoral failures in 2022 and 2020. Some, yeah. But they do some things good. And I think that their media game now is, at least in the online sphere, is dwarfing what the Democrats have on offer.
I don't think they do anything intentionally good. Well, maybe intentional from all the individuals involved. I just think they are part of the, like organically, as painful as it is to say, they have a lot of good organic presence. Fox News is the most popular. Notice how whenever people criticize the mainstream media, they never ever mention Fox News. They're always suspiciously quiet about Fox News. It is dwarfing. It is dominating. Some of the numbers that came out recently over CNN and MSNBC, it's insane. So they have Fox News on lock. They have a lot of organic support from, I'll politely say, crazy celebrities, and then all of the Kevin Sorbo and Hulk Hogan.
Holy crap!
What?
Two big muscly guys.
You think you didn't think I studied for this? Okay, I was up all night. I got it right here on lock.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So they have those people. They also have these like, do you want to say failed comedians or disgruntled comedians? COVID comedians?
I'll say like the comedian circuit in New York City especially, which is so weird to say and think that like the comedian circuit in New York City. But it's crazy.
There's some good ones. Shout out Adam Friedland.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Mullen.
Yeah, absolutely. Good guys, good dudes. But it's funny that even the audiences are so much further to the right than a lot of the comedian guys are. I don't know if they realize that or not, because they're these people that I go and talk to. I always forget the second guy's name, and it's so rude. Ryan Long and his partner, who's the guy who I even talk to more.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I'll talk to these guys. We get along just fine. There's nothing awkward, nothing weird. We chat on the show, even if we're like a little bit, combative back and forth or whatever. But then the audience is like, this fucking guy, we hate this dude. He's so horrible. And it's like, oh my God, the audiences are crazy.
Yeah. YouTube comments I've noticed, and it's not just on your videos, I have to say, although your YouTube people hate me. That said, You know, if there
That's
are
August's fault. He character assassinates you a lot, you know?
Yeah, we're gonna
You know that if Pisco's there, we're about to have the most pedantic disagreement.
Super true. But I do notice that a lot of these audiences are just headhunting. They're putting all sorts of vitriol in the replies. Like your replies are pretty unhinged on Twitter. And
yeah,
I'm just saying.
Yeah, they are. They are indeed, yeah.
And Reddit is like the only place, but who goes on Reddit these days?
Everybody.
Okay.
That's still a pretty big platform. But no, the online media environment is it's like when the guy peeks out in Terminator 2 and like you see like how destroyed the whole environment is, and it's like the T-1000s. Literally, I guess bots are the bot stuff, the foreign dudes, the organic like psyopers from like far right audiences that are real people. Like it's all the online environment is harsh.
Let's talk Daily Wire for a moment here.
Okay.
So we have Ben Shapiro, one of the biggest conservatives.
Coming today here?
No, not here.
I'm just kidding.
Jeez. Oof. Although he's welcome if he wants. I don't know where does he live? You don't have
Jesus. What, you're trying to dox him now too? Oh my God. Okay. Actually, I think he's down near Miami, Florida, I think.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Did he move there?
At some point in his life, I imagine. Yeah. I don't know if he was born there.
So the Daily Wire, they have this.
Did you see him thumbs me up for my joke? I'm so funny.
Jesus.
I love that. Every time I say a funny joke, I need a thumbs up for that. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
They like have their arms around all different kinds of content creators. You have Dave Smith, right? Is a part of it, or is he not part of it?
The Daily Wire?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Oh wait, no. Who am I thinking of? Dave Rubin? What's it with Dave's?
Questionable people at best.
Yeah.
I would say. Dave and Buster's, not the best.
No. The reason I bring it up is because that seems like new media, quote unquote, but they're just replicating a kind of online version of old media where it feels like a version of Fox News, but just on YouTube.
I think the disappointing thing, the brown one, I think the disappointing thing, there were two assistants and I could choose between one or the other, so I chose. It was a brown belt. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. One of the cool things about alternative media was supposed to be that it like freed you up to be independent and to give you a perspective that didn't exist on mainstream media. But like you said, it's basically just become, I don't know if you say a shadow of, or a copy of, or a distorted mutation of what the mainstream media is. I think I've been on multiple shows now where I've asked a conservative, what are some like substantive issues that you disagree with Donald Trump on?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Crickets. The quietest I've ever heard it in my entire life is being on set and asking somebody that question. It's like,
so let's take a moment to discuss something, and I think it's relevant to our media discussion because you're watching a real fracture in the MAGA movement, let's say, and these fissures existed prior to the election. Everyone knew about them, and that's the H-1B visa, Civil War type stuff. So this is an issue that's supposed to be the galvanizing issue for MAGA, that is immigration, and not just stopping illegal immigration, but reducing all kinds of immigration. I mean, J.D. Vance, one of his, I think, major policy positions is he's trying to defend, quote unquote, I don't believe him, domestic labor and domestic workers. And so there's a big attitude amongst the MAGA base to be against legal immigration and be against increases in legal immigration. And yet you have Elon Musk and other tech billionaires, MAGA oligarchs, who are in favor of it because it's better for their business and that kind of thing. And Trump comes out in favor of expanding or at least maintaining the H-1B visa program as it exists.
Which is a complete and total 180 from his position in 2016 and kind of in 2020.
So that's where I was going to go is why don't MAGA type news organizations, media, why don't they call him on that hypocrisy? And two, why isn't there more of an outcry? We criticize a little bit the TYT and Cenk Uyghurs of the world for saying, the right-wing populists are going to be the groundswell to push Trump in one direction. But it seems like the directionality there is a little bit reversed in that Trump's doing the leading. And there isn't this kind of organic rise against Trump from the MAGA base. So I'm asking you those two questions, the hypocrisy question and why isn't that you're not seeing more push from the media side and from the base side to change the actual policy?
It's a really complicated question. I think my answers have always been like this. There's a lot of different things at play. I think that one of the things that's kind of worked with Trump is not really a part of this conversation. I think he came out and he kind of gave one statement, like tepidly supporting Elon's position, but Elon has definitely caught the brunt of
the flack.
This debate. Yeah. And Vivek, I guess, or at least from what I've seen.
Did you read that statement, by the way, where he's like, we're too in favor of the prom king and the cheerleader, and The football player, not enough for math Olympiads. What do you think of that? Seemed out of touch.
Did it seem out of touch? I don't know. I have a lot of Asian friends in, LA.
Well, did you agree with the statement that he's like, basically, we should be more like the stereotypical Asian culture?
I think America is great. You ever play Mega Man?
Yes.
Really? Which
No.
one? Why would you lie to me like that?
I've played like a frame or two of it, and there's a.
Do you understand
Do you know
concept of
Homestar
the
Runner?
game?
Homestar Runner?
Yeah.
There's Stinko Man.
Wait, how old are you again?
We don't need to
You don't even know
Do you
Homestar
know,
Runner.
hang on a second. Do you know Stinko Man?
I don't remember.
Okay, I did that, but I didn't do
Okay,
that.
that was okay. In Mega Man, every time you beat a boss, you steal one of their powers. So that was the analogy I was going for. But don't worry about it. Forget it. One of the great strengths of America is that we can truly absorb everything. Like in a funny way, I remember watching by the channel name is Cuck Philosophy. Yeah. Unironically, but he
Flip that.
He does a lot of like good
Cuck
videos.
Philosophy.
Yeah, he does a lot of good videos. And we watch them before, and it's really funny because even like Marxists or leftists will complain that capitalism and liberalism in America is so successful, it can absorb even the criticisms of itself and then make those things part of itself.
Right.
Like us on Piger. No, I'm just kidding. But like, yeah, this idea that you can absorb so many different things and then kind of like create something out of it. So I think there's something to be said for maybe America is a little bit too lax in how we approach like educational achievement. If I was Vivek and I was like a successful Indian, and if I was in a family that had like that kind of disciplined approach to things, and then you kind of like look at your party now and it's a bunch of people who are anti-education, don't believe in college, think that it's all like overhyped or whatever. I could see him having that take that like maybe it's a little bit more important to celebrate like the mathletes and whatever rather than just say like, oh, like the prom homecoming stuff or whatever, you know?
That's
Not to say that it has to be one or the other, but yeah.
Excuse me, sorry. I like that answer. I think it's a very thoughtful answer. Bringing it back to the media side of it, that's not typically the reaction of the Beltway conservative, right? If
For
you
sure.
start talking about shit. So why are you having this thoughtful answer? There's been a reaction online, but not really this push towards Trump to fight back against Vivek. Or sorry, it's at least not a lot of criticism, and the media is kind of going mute on it. So why is it that we're seeing that kind of tension?
Well, I mean, like you've absorbed a lot of kind of new, like the whole tech bro Silicon Valley stuff. These people don't cleanly align with Trump. Everybody gets, I guess it's like a strength and a weakness at the same time. Everybody gets to Trump in like a different way now. And the tendrils of like conservatism or at least MAGA-ism has like spread to so many different areas that you're bound to start taking in large groups of people that are going to have big disagreements with you depending upon what particular issue you're talking about. So like tech bros and crypto guys align when they want kind of maybe like less regulation on the crypto side or less regulation on like financial related stuff, and maybe these like quasi-libertarian-esque ideas about like budget stuff. But when it comes to your big like nativism and nationalism and like these like anti-immigrant types of arguments, I don't know if you're going to find as much alliance there, especially maybe with the workers a little bit, but not with the business owners. You're a startup or you're working in San Francisco and you're like, yeah, no more H-1Bs, no more outsourcing labor. Like I'm just going to pay $250,000 for every engineer that I bring on board for whatever project. Like, yeah, these guys don't want it. And then in a way, it's funny because it kind of mirrors the old neocon Tea Party split of the 2000s Bush era, right? Where doubled the size of the Department of Education, never really did much about immigration because businesses, and now it's funny because you see that coming up again, and to nobody's surprise, wow, not to sound like a leftist, but the billionaires and the business owners sided with the programs that give them access to cheap labor.
They won.
Of course, and now and it's the, I think Kylekolinsky, whose Twitter has been fire, okay, for like the past like 2 or 3 months.
Can you recite your favorite tweet of his by memory?
I don't know if I want to say it because it's misogynistic. I don't know if it's misogynistic or not. It's the beans one.
It's the beans one.
I don't even know. It was just such a dumb, it was just such a, it looks like something I would have tweeted in 2016. I'm like, what a stupid tweet. But it's hilarious. I think it got like over 100,000 likes on it. But I think he's been tweeting the memes too, but it's like the, oh God.
The robot that gets replaced with a chip.
That's one of them, but it's not that. It's like the
I fell for it again.
Yeah, the I fell for it again awards. Yeah, and it's like, oh my God, the billionaire guy is aligning with billionaire interests and not with us, the people. That's so surprising.
So why is it Kylekolinsky doing that? And let's get back to the hypocrisy. Trump comes out in 2016 and says like actually a written statement, I think, which is like, we need to be done with H-1B visas. Why isn't like it the right wing alt new right media that's calling him out for this shit and directing it towards Trump's hypocrisy as opposed to Vivek and Elon, who are kind of easier targets?
Without getting too much into, I guess, like, without getting, oh man, all these questions are so heavy. You know this. We've spent a lot of time on stream talking about this. There's a concept that I talk about, emotivism, where when people say things, it doesn't really have anything to do. You're not even trying to translate what they're saying into some other factual statement. Usually they're just like giving you an emotion about how they feel about a thing. So Donald Trump might say something about like H-1B visas are good, and what he really might be saying is like, or what the feeling is that like these illegal immigrants are bad. We need high skill labor. And that might be like what people are hearing. And then later on, now when we're in an environment where I think the poor tech workers are up to like 2% unemployment, the horrors. And now, you know, they're feeling like, okay, well, oh my God, we just had all these tech layoffs because we were all being employed way too much or getting paid way too much. Now the emotion is like, well, now we're against H-1Bs, but not because they're like principally opposed to high skill immigration or anything else, but just because they're feeling that squeeze and they're like, I want you to protect our wages more, because Trump ran on a very protectionist platform, right? A very nativist, very protectionist platform. So,
well, he said he did, but then he did have some statements to the effect of, we'll staple a green card to every single diploma if you get educated in the United States.
I heard him say that one time, which is an amazing idea, by the way. One of the biggest benefits of even illegal immigrants is that your big government expenditures are early in life and late in life. And if you can take somebody into your country at 18, 19 years old, you've already gotten all of the early childhood fiscal spending out of the way. So that one of the craziest things about deporting DACA kids is that like you had all of the tax, the fiscal burden, and then the labor burden because you've got somebody not working to raise these children. Yeah. And then they get educated in your publicly funded schools. And now you're going to ship them to another country. What a gift. I think I remember him saying this statement, but it was like one time. And he's also spent part of his administration trying to destroy DACA. So I have no idea what he would actually do, but what an amazing idea that would be. And I've got like mixed feelings on it. I know it's a bad American statement to say like, I hope his administration does horrible, but there's like a world where Trump and even like RFK stumble into all of the right answers just because they're so clueless about things. And stapling a green card to diplomas for people that we pay to educate, that would be an amazing thing to do. Yeah.
And I think that you and I are big enough to admit if he were to do something that we agreed with.
I'm not.
You're not. Okay. I guess we're not.
But you're big enough to admit that if he did something we agree with, then
we would be, I guess we would be saying so. I mean, you wouldn't say something if Trump did something based, you wouldn't agree with it, or you wouldn't.
I think you have to be really careful because it depends on how they get there. Yeah. Right. If I had like a worker who was just like doing a horrible job and I was like, we're getting rid of her. And you're like, good call. And I'm like, thank you. I don't want any women on set. Yeah. Okay. Would you like agree that was like, well, it was a good fire at least, right? Yeah, probably not.
I think that's a good point. And so I don't think we can rely on the right-wing media to be calling out the excesses of Donald Trump or this new regime that he's going to have. And I think that sometimes the contradictions are part of the strategy. He can have plausible deniability. He can, have these kind of infights and use them to his advantage to jockey for position. And so I think that we have to rely on our Democrats to be strong. We have to rely on our Democratic media to be strong as an opposition. But it seems like people are giving up in advance. That's what it seems like, both from the old media perspective with certain, I think CNN's been there for a while. I think the false, both sides-ism, and then certain figures that we've already talked about on new media that seem to be like quite sanguine, quite optimistic about Trump presidency potentially doing really great things. And so what do you want to see out of the Democrats, I'd say globally, and then specifically the media approach of the Democrats moving forward to combat if we can't rely on the right-wing structures to self-police?
Two big things. So one, and I think this is the perfect forum to have this conversation, is what is the Democratic Party? Like, what does the Democratic Party represent? When I think of like, what is the Republican Party? I think of Donald Trump. He's a big dude. Yeah. That's like whatever MAGA is, like they have a name for their culture, MAGA, right? And that brings to mind...
It's an identity.
A whole bunch of cultural things. It brings to mind music, that guitar player, the...
YMCA.
Okay, maybe.
Which guitar player?
Who was the country guy who did the Richmond? Richmond.
Oliver.
I don't remember the guy's name. But like
Oliver? Is it Oliver?
Sure. Check if Let's go that. They'll edit it in the post. Okay. Edit that. Yeah, but they have like their own music. They've got their own memes. They've got their own media figures. They've got Daily Wire movies. Like they have everything. But I think of like, what does it mean to be a Democrat? I'm thinking like Michelle and Barack are like in the server room in the deep state, like tinkering with things. There's just like nothing that comes to mind for like, what is the Democratic culture? And the sad thing is not to cause division or do any division, but just identifying division. When you think of the strongest points of Democrat culture, you're thinking of what the Republicans are telling us the Democrat culture is. Democrat culture is the Palestinian protesters on college campuses. It's the BLM rioters. It's just like the most extreme. It's the people on college campuses. It's the people that they make fun of in their movies in the Daily Wire.
Or it's corrupt Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, or it's the Hunter Biden crime family, or it's the Hillary Clinton, corruption. It's all of these things. And it feels really weird. I've kind of joked about this before, that even if I go on left-leaning shows, if I was like, I'm supporting Biden 100%, or I'm supporting Harris 100%, you feel like a dork.
Yeah.
Even on like left-leaning shows, you're like a nerd.
You look like a dork.
Yeah, and it's like...
No, I mean, you look like a dork.
Like right now?
No, I'm just joking.
Fuck you. It feels weird. And it's like... And it's so funny that on a left-leaning show, ostensibly, where we're supporting the left, something, or at least in opposition to the right, I feel weird even supporting the candidate. Meanwhile, in center spaces, where it's like, man, who should we vote for? It's a tough election. None of those guys are ever saying like, I'm going to have to go with Harris. It's always like, I think that the country will be destroyed if we don't vote for Trump this time. And it's like, what the f***?
100%. I think Brian Tyler Cohen says it the best. He says, right-wing people get their laurels, get their credit for going after left-wing people, and so do a lot of left-wing content creators.
Yeah.
They're like
the punching bag. Yeah. Meanwhile, all of the legislative heavy lifting is done by people on the left.
Yeah.
Trump is going to benefit so much from things like the CHIPS Act and the infrastructure. I was going to say the infrastructure bill, the Inflation Reduction Act, like all of these things. Not only does he get to benefit from that, I had a great emailer. I love my emailers. Yeah. I love you guys. Thank you. I don't know whatever camera I'm on. Thank you, emailers. A guy who emailed me, and he pointed out that a lot of the increased debt and a lot of the spending deficit that Biden had to deal with was a lapse from the tax bill that Donald Trump did. But when you have that tax bill, you get the immediate feel-good feelings of it. Like, imagine if there were two people living in your body. Imagine if there was nightclub Adrian and then there was hangover Adrian.
Yeah.
And nightclub Adrian gets to have all the fun, pass the tax bills, do the crazy deficit spending, be a disaster during COVID. And then you wake up as hungover Adrian, and now you have to rebuild from the 2007, 2008 financial crisis, rebuild from COVID and everything else. And we are playing this game over and over again. And it's like, bro.
Yeah. Have you seen the movie Substance? You haven't.
I have.
You have?
Of course.
So that's what you were referencing just then, and you didn't think I would see the movie? You didn't think I saw
Oh my God, I wasn't referencing that, but that would have been a really good analogy. I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah. That's
for
a good
O'Malley. Yeah.
Well, I think it's kind of funny because it feels like every time there's a Democratic presidency, the Republicans make a mess and the Democrats clean it up. And I think that's even true of boring things like line items and deficits and that kind of shit.
And while we're doing it, they are kicking and screaming the whole way
about our massive deficits and the massive
about everything they don't want to work with or do anything. Yeah.
And so why here we have objective wins recognized by really both parts of the Democratic Party. You can say even like the more lefty side of it and the more establishment side. I'm going to lay out some of them. Massively, not neoliberal policies, but pro-American worker policies. That is with the NLRB. That is
the first president to ever join a picket line.
Correct.
In U.S. history.
Actual policies like in all of these big expenditure plans, I think they're all like produced in America because Republicans have been kicking and screaming about that. And it's actually funny. I had a Twitter fight with someone who was like, I hate that there's a delay in the getting broadband to everybody. Mm-hmm. It's not super delayed. It's according to schedule. It takes time to get these things like up and running. But he's like, if they wouldn't just make it in America, if they would take deals from outside of the country, maybe it would be done faster. But I'm like, that's because you guys wanted it. You guys want everything to be made in America. And Biden made it a policy goal to benefit the American worker, extending some of these targeted tariffs, a lot of massive investment in American production. The CHIPS Act you already mentioned, those are massive wins for that I think lefties would like. For the more, I would say, liberal side of it, you have...
And just as a thing there are also examples of good, it sounds weird to say, but it's good governance.
Yeah.
We had an executive who, in a historically divided country and divided Senate, was able to pass insane amounts of legislation. And even your Emma Vigelands, even your Kylekolinsky's, like all of your far-left people who were kind of not the biggest fans of Biden coming in, I think have all said, even seeing that on the majority report, like Biden did a much better job than anybody thought he would have been able to coming in.
I frankly, I would challenge any one of these people to name in their lifetime a president with a better domestic agenda
Reagan
than Joe Biden. They would never say that.
Yeah,
they would never. Now, I say domestic purposely, and we can leave it at that. But all that is to say, that didn't get through to a lot of people. Those wins for domestic labor, and I didn't get into the liberal ones, but they exist, and you know them. We talk about them all the time. It didn't get through. Why not?
I can't say anything about it being mean. So I feel like a big feeling that I have is that people are feeling a lot of what's being told to them. So people will feel like things are horrible or terrible, even if they're not. And I think that we have a way of framing things like negatively or positively in our mind, depending upon the environmental stimulus we're getting. So it's not that people are not understanding, like seeing a fact of what's happening, but their interpretation of that fact. I've given this example several times when we were on that call with the one guy who said he was an immigrant and that he moved to another place and that inflation was making it impossible for him and his wife to get by, or was making it much more difficult, right?
All in the spaces.
Yes. And they moved into a house that was twice as expensive.
Oh, that's
he quit his job to take care of a new child they had, and he was complaining that Biden's America was making it tougher to live in. And that was interesting to me because I was like, I'm curious, if this would have happened under Trump, with the same set of facts, would you have said, I was able to quit my job and move into a house that was twice as expensive as our last one, and even though it's tight, we're still making it. That's Trump's America. I'm curious, And then when you look at the, how is it that, not to throw everybody under the bus, my audience under the bus, whatever, but like supposedly we're on like the toughest times. Inflation is crazy. We can't afford anything. But like your Black Friday spending is up massively. Your holiday travels was up massively. And now I just read, there's another big thing that just happened. What was it? Economics, record something. Car sales, I think. Yeah.
Travel as well.
Yeah, travel was before. Yeah, but I think car sales, I think this is one of the largest years, I think, or they're like largest upcoming or pre-orders or something. I would have to check that out.
And those are like objective facts. Like if people's behavior are these like record-setting grocery spending, record-setting travel, and record-setting expenditures, record Black Friday.
Yeah.
There just must be a massive disconnect with objective reality. I mean, do you buy people? So people like Nate Silver say it's not a vibe session. There's real wages have not increased.
I think inflation was real.
Yeah, that's real.
Why. And I think it's important to look at that because that was the one issue that stuck for all 4 years. Everything else was bullshit. The trans boxing, even Trump after the election was like, "What? How many people are even trans? Like, do we really give a fuck? They don't, right? What happened to? I have a 13-year-old son. Are there drag queen readers at his library still, or did they get rid of all of those? Like, where do they go?
You haven't asked him.
I haven't. He showed up yesterday in a dress in a ruby red lipstick, and I'm like, Nathan, what the is going on here? And he's like,
wrong with that?
It was absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing. But I'm just saying that like all of these things were supposedly like we have like 20,000 existential crises at like literally any point in time. But then they move off. Yeah, immediately. There's a lot of caravans. I guess we're probably going to talk about this for 20 years, man.
2 years. There's
supposed to be a lot of money in those caravans. Yeah. But just to say that like they come and they go. The inflation one stuck around a lot. I do think that seeing higher prices is an immediately bad feeling type of thing for sure.
And right now, for those of you following another win for Biden, I think Russia right now is going through a lot of that stuff with their war, and you're starting to see even in Russia, even in places like you would think a very authoritarian place and all that stuff. I saw some interviews that people are like, we're really struggling with like prices are a big thing. So no doubt on that stuff, but you are saying that there is a disconnect between policy and people's perception. Yeah,
somehow I don't know how this has to change. Republicans can control that perception so well they can pull a mask and just outwardly lie about a particular thing. I brought this example up a million times. I probably said it to you. The Donald Trump saying like, were you happy now or were you happier 4 years ago? When like 4 years ago,
like COVID and all that. Yeah.
How can you even say that? And not a single, I think the only person I saw even remotely call him out on this was Dave Smith. When Dave Smith was like, he should have said 5 years ago. I was like, okay, good one. Yeah.
Dave Smith, shout out Dave Smith.
Absolutely not.
He bothers you sometimes. Listen.
No, actually, I'm a big fan of Dave Smith.
Okay.
I like that he recognizes his place. Like when we did a live show together, he was like slinking in his little chair next to me, while me and Mehdi Hassan were just not violent, but on Palin.
That was
oh my God.
that was beautiful.
You don't understand. That was like a decades of saved up resentment and hatred for Palin.
Because Palin
brainwashed my mom in the 2008 days.
it's actually pretty sinister, that entire and McCain's picking of her. But even let's put that aside for a second. The fact that she would absolutely support, undyingly, unflinchingly, the guy that went after the man who chose her to be vice president, and like
in a really shameless way too. Yeah.
And you could say I support him notwithstanding this fact. Okay. But that you would do that and not even call him out on
not even acknowledge
say, no,
it.
that was wrong to do.
Yeah.
My friend, John McCain, which she called him my friend. And after he passed, he called him his friend as well. Not even like say, no, that was wrong for Trump to do when you asked him, that was just a beautiful moment. But anyway.
It is interesting to see that. I think a little bit was the change up in Iraq that the Republicans were like 97% in favor of, that after Iraq and after January 6th, you're in this weird world where Republicans were like traditionally the party of law and order. And they supported the military and the troops and the police. And now they hate both of those things.
And now they're pro-corruption. Now they're literally pro-corruption. Every time there's a Democrat who is being accused of corrupt stuff, they all rally around the Democrat. And so it's not even just a partisan pro-corruption thing. They just approve of corruption
when it's on their side, because their excuse is, well, the Democrats did it first.
Well, but even some Democrats who like Blagojevich, who's like now I guess supporting Trump or whatever, they'll just come out and support the person who's being accused of corruption. But anyway, so I see that you're charting a disconnect between the people, what they believe, and some objective facts. Not all of them, but some.
Somehow, the Democrats need to be able to take credit for things. Hillary Clinton tried this and failed miserably.
Yeah.
Remember, it was Make America Great Again versus America's Already Great. And the Democrats just can't take credit for anything. I don't know why. Like, if you were to come out as a Democrat and try to say, like, I think that Biden did a good job. It's like, a good job? Have you seen our student loan debt? Have you seen the housing prices? Have you seen inflation? You're like destroyed. Meanwhile, Trump could be like, I did a great job. And it's like, you were a miserable failure leading us through COVID, but okay. That's very frustrating. How do they do it?
Is that frustration one of the reasons you wanted to follow this race?
No, actually, Israel just paid me $450. No, I'm just kidding. No, yeah, like you said, that you can see in the way that a lot of the candidates have been communicating that one of the big drives that these guys have they're twofold. One is a thing that I've seen a lot behind the scenes, which is making resources available to local campaigns. And then the second thing is media strategy and outreach and like vision for Democratic Party, and we are sorely lacking that right now. And I think that, I don't know if it'll be the DNC chair where that comes from. Maybe this will be a more visible race than it has been in the past, but like the Democratic Party needs some kind of identity, and we just don't have it right now. The strongest identities are all outside of the Democratic Party that are like on the left, like Bernie Sanders is probably the strongest identity. I feel so weird saying this because I hated her so much a long time ago. Not hate her, but like I wish AOC would come back more.
AOC. Yeah, I think that AOC should be frankly our leader, and I would.
She's gotten screwed over a couple times, right?
She needed to be on that oversight.
The stuff with she also got screwed over. Some emails remind me of this. She kind of got screwed over on the. It feels like she was very much out of the loop on the Biden talks. Can I just say, one of the things I appreciated the most is when the whole party was in disarray, when Obama, when Pelosi, when stuff was getting leaked to the media, that Pelosi was on fucking Instagram Live.
AOC was on Instagram.
I'm sorry, yeah, the AOC was on Instagram Live.
Talking to everyone.
Yeah, and she was like, we need to support Biden. We need to, and I was like, damn, that's huge respect.
And I actually think, even though some people have closed doors sometimes, I think that she had a huge influence on policy with the Inflation Reduction Act specifically, because that all came out of Build Back Better, which kind of was somewhat structured on a lot of the thoughts and ideas behind the Green New Deal. And so I think that she's actually a worker, unlike someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene or some of these other firebrands, where they don't do the job. They don't do the work.
Exactly.
They don't show up. They don't go to votes and shit, and they don't go to committee. But she does. And I think it's a shame that she wasn't appointed to be the leadership of that committee. But like, let's drill down on what you said before there, which is directionless, utterless, kind of aimless, and the personality isn't where the party is. I agree with you that this DNC chair race is usually not a big ticket item for influencers to get involved in. For those of you who get some background, the DNC is like a private corporation association of people. It is not a government thing. This is an election that's done by like 400 or so, maybe close to 500 insiders.
400, yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know if their names have been released publicly, but this is an insider election of the Democratic Party. And I don't know that they're used to all these eyes that are going to be on them. And I think that it's a really great thing that you are trying to bring attention to this issue, because I think they'll only start listening to us if we start to get involved.
Which I think is good. I think people need to realize the two-wayness of politics sometimes. It's so funny. There are so many like common attacks against politicians that I think reveal maybe even a little bit of a misunderstanding, where people will say things like, oh, like he flip-flopped on this just because he wanted to win his election, and he changed. It's like, that's good. You want people to change their position if the voter, if the electorate is changing their opinions to some extent.
Which brings me, it brings me to something that Kamala said, but she wasn't able to say it effectively, when she's like, my values haven't changed.
But understanding where the American people at is which is good.
But you couldn't say it in a more, I don't know, maybe she
couldn't say anything because she was getting assassinated from every single side. Because the right-leaning circuit is crazy. The mid-left is like obsessed with being like fair and balanced, and then the far left hates everything. And
So you want to take a greater stake in the party, and I mean,
just real quick on what I was saying, that people will care about you if it seems like you care about them. That's like the most important thing. So when it comes to politicians, right, this came up a lot over the BLM stuff and crime reform, right, where it's like, well, who are your biggest voters in any given area? It's going to be older, whiter, more affluent people, right? These people aren't getting busted for weed, or they're not getting misdemeanors or felony charges. They're just like people, they're senior citizens. These are your biggest voters. It's no surprise when you look at the voting base, like where the policies are going or where they trend towards. Like that doesn't make, like, you want to talk about attacking entitlements and attacking welfare and everything else. Social Security has remained like pretty steadfast for a reason, and it's because those are your big voter blocks. So for the DNC chair people, right, if the people, the electorate, if we care more about what goes on there, then they might have more of a care of what we think.
I think that's a wonderful comparison. So what are you looking for in a DNC chair candidate? What kind of person would you get excited about? And, I don't think you've said whether or not you're going to support a candidate at the end of this process and at the end of your interviews, but if you were looking to support a candidate or to promote their ideas and that kind of thing, what would appeal to you?
I think the two big things, it's actually probably the two things I brought up earlier. One is I want to hear like a vision for the Democratic Party that's a little bit above and beyond just kind of like the sloganeering. Mm-hmm. Slogans are important, but like I really want to hear how is the Democratic Party going to, like, I don't want to say reinvent itself, but at least like get a facelift. Yeah. So that it feels like I want to be able to say like I support the candidate for president without feeling like a loser, okay, without being a fucking dork, okay. And then the second thing is on substance, like what are we going to change moving forward to make this a more well-oiled machine, to get like this coordination going between all the different races and all of these different states and everything else. So yeah.
And to give you guys some insight here, the DNC might have some influence on substantive policy, but it's a little bit parallel to that. It's not one like, so the questions you might ask, and I'm going to ask you about what your approach is going to be to these interviews and what positions you're going to take in terms of, or what's your strategy in terms of getting the answers you want from the candidates themselves. But it's not going to be as policy oriented. It's going to be more, the policy will be the approach to the party.
Basically, yeah.
You know,
like let's say you've heard of like, is it platform 9 3/4
for Harry Potter?
Yeah. No. It's going to be like more like the macro visionary things. Yeah.
What did that have to, were you trying to reference the,
Nope.
Okay. Got it. Okay. So let's talk about your approach to the interviews. What, you don't know these people firsthand. You're about to meet them.
That's what you think.
Oh, okay. So what are you going to try to build a rapport with them? Are you, what's going to be your tactic in these interviews?
I think it's going to be to basically get the, like, what do you want to do differently? And I mean, one of the things that I'm known for on stream, aside from being charming, handsome, funny, etc., good at video games, talented, strong, tall, is kind of like digging for at least like an example, I guess. Like, tell me a thing that you're going to do.
Specifics.
Rather than I am going to overhaul the way that the Democratic Party communicates with candidates in a way that's never been done before, so we can increase our outreach to young people. It's like, like, tell me what you're going to do. And for the people that we've got coming up, especially O'Malley, like, these people have been in politics. They have things that they have done that have been successful, that have been novel. I'm just curious to hear, like, give me like a couple things, and like, let's kind of like talk through it. And then I think I'm also kind of curious to hear, like, what do you think has changed a lot in the Democratic Party, because these people have been on the inside and the outside for a long time. And one of the things that I'm kind of interested in, I guess, on a personal level, is we always have this feeling that it's worse than it ever has been.
Yeah.
Has it persisted through all of time? Like, does it genuinely, for somebody who's 60 and has been in politics for a long time, is it really the worst it ever has been? Or is this just like a cyclical feeling that comes and goes? Or I'm curious what they think personally on that, yeah.
So they're taking the sort of the mood of the country or the party.
Yeah, or do you see parallels between, how we feel about this versus... Well, I don't think that old, but yeah.
Sorry. So just to give you guys some context, my bad. So today we're doing interviews with Martin O'Malley and with State Senator Skoufis, who they're both going to come in today. And we're going to have other candidates as well. We're doing one tomorrow as well, which I think, Stephen, that you announced as earlier today. And we'll have other candidates down the road. And is there going to be a call to action from you? Are you going to ask your community to get more involved in this race specifically and in Democratic politics specifically?
I actually haven't thought about that. Yeah. Like, in terms of would I support a particular person? I'm not like shy about it. And I don't think that I represent some company or political org where it would be improper for me to support a particular person. So I would have no problem like pushing my people towards a person, I guess.
But in general, you want a more collaborative relationship with the Democratic Party
on a personal level. Yeah, sure. Yeah. But I think that like the important thing is this, at least in online spaces, it feels like we have a very much like a take it or leave it attitude, to where if I don't get my guy, I don't care. I'm totally disconnected. Right. If it's not my dude, I don't care, and I'm gone. No Bernie,
and that's
no
not
vote,
your perspective.
And that's it. Yeah, and that has to not be the perspective, right? Okay. Like, I think I was more on the Biden staying side versus the Harris running, which fair. I've been fully vindicated on, because Biden would have won the election 100%. I'm just kidding. But that was kind of a feeling I had. But once it was Harris, it was all in Harris. It's not even a question, of course. Anybody, whoever would have been, even if it would have been Bernie Sanders that would have ran in an open primary and won, it would have been all in Bernie Sanders easily without a second thought. Yeah.
How do you navigate that? Because part of the reason why people like you is because you do speak candidly and you do speak your mind. A lot of this kind of insider baseball is relationship building. And obviously we haven't like pre-screened any questions or anything. This is all going to be you and the candidate. But how do you go about navigating the difficulties in, you want to speak your mind. That's what you're known for. You don't want to hold back all, and obviously there's probably going to be a middle ground that you're going to, speak to. But is that hard for you?
Well, now I'm hoping that they're going to come to me a little bit. Yeah. So I guess we'll see, because you've, without giving examples, because it's crazy, Donald Trump talked to an insane smorgasbord, I don't know how to pronounce it, an insane collection of insane individuals with absolutely no pushback or detriment at all. And the Democrats need to wake up a little bit and be like, listen, this is not, I know that the island of trash Puerto Rico joke seemed really bad. Nobody gives a I'm sorry, nobody cared about that.
I try to make them care, guys.
Yeah, nobody cared. Nobody gave a fuck. And like, meanwhile, Democrats will be like, oh God, like, 15 years ago, like this guy, said or did this, or it's like, it's time to like chill a little bit. It's time to, I understand that your staffers are young and a lot of them might be like super progressive, but it's okay to like push back a little bit. And it's okay for them to give their like their feedback and everything too. Like one thing that I want to stress too, because I always try to make people aware of all the different moving pieces and all the different sides, that like one of the things I've said about you that I like so much is that we fight really hard. Brutally. Yeah. And you've come at me personally on things that you've said that aren't true. Like, I haven't read the Colorado Supreme Court ruling and stuff like that you know are not true, right? So we've gone at each other really. I accuse you of being Italian all the time, right? So we go at each other really brutally, but by the end of the day, there's no question that we're on the same side. It's like not even a second thought. It's like bullying the fuck out of your sibling. Yeah. I have a sister. Yeah, we bully the fuck out of her siblings. But like, if somebody else comes in,
you're my brother, dog.
Yeah, it's not even close. Yeah.
And like we're brothers.
Yeah, we are literally brothers. Yeah. That's welcome. We just revealed feel that.
But you should watch our conversation about Merrick Garland, also with Josiah, who I think I feel similarly to about in terms of we get into it pretty.
Oh yeah,
yeah. All the Live and Learn boys, shout out Live and Learn.
Yeah.
There's no question that like we are gunning for the same thing.
Yeah.
Whereas sometimes it doesn't feel that way with everyone in the space.
And I don't want to. The reason I say this, I want to be clear. If you're a progressive and you're a massive Bernie bro, or you're like a lefty, tanky, Marxist, whatever, I don't think that you should stop pushing for those things and you just need to shut up and fall in line. And you should push as hard as you want, whether that means getting Justice Dems elected, whether that means fighting on a local level, whether that means trying to get larger candidates to adopt part of your platform, which I would argue Bernie Sanders was successful in getting like the 15-hour minimum wage adopted, at least as like a talking point or some kind of integration, right? I think that these are good things and it's okay. But I need the establishment people to also have some backbone, and that if they push for a thing and they don't get it, that's fine. But like, have your positions, like hear like criticism and feedback. You don't have to run away from everything that looks even slightly controversial because you're scared of whatever. Like media cycles in this country are like 1 to 3 days long.
Yeah.
You know, stick with it a little bit. Yeah, just have a little bit of a backbone and be okay. Yeah.
Toughness, grit.
Yeah.
I think we need
tenacity.
Yeah. One of the things that I think that Kamala Harris would have been a fantastic president, and I don't think that she's closing herself off to run again. But one thing that where if she's going to run again, where I would want to see a greater, push for is that confidence to go into these spaces. And yes, sometimes even right-wing spaces and sometimes even weird alternative spaces with confidence. And no one here is saying don't interact with MAGA, don't interact with right-wing spaces, right-wing news. I think that our next Democratic leaders need to interact with the other side.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
But at all the time, I think we can't lose sight of that goal. And that goal needs to be unity to defeat MAGA, unity to protect the Republic.
Yeah. They need support from their side too, though. Like they need like real support because like imagine you're trying to fight, right? And you're getting like attacked from the front and the back. Like you can't do anything.
Yeah.
And you can tell when Trump or when a conservative goes on to a platform to speak, they're just in full-on offense mode.
They're on the same team.
Yeah, but he can go and attack, and he doesn't have to defend anything. He's got his whole establishment to protect him from that. And I'm not saying that our candidates shouldn't be, are like beyond reproach, and they shouldn't be like questioned on anything. But when Kamala goes on, you can tell that not only is she trying to fend off like what's being said here, she also has to be very careful because if she missteps, she's going to get it from the left establishment, the lefties, and the left, and the center.
And in the debate, let me push back, not really push back, but just give you the what happened when the media did that. When the media was saying to Trump, the cats and dogs thing, there's no evidence of that, or whatever they were saying in that debate, they got massive, huge criticism from the MAGA side to it. And so I agree that we can't rely on these, on just being like hopeful that the quote unquote neutral arbiters are going to be calling balls and strikes, because their guys who are more establishment or their people who are their newscasters, they're not just calling balls and strikes.
No, absolutely not. And Brian, I call him Brian. You called him Brian Tyler Cohen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
BTC.
Yeah.
He likes that better.
Does he?
For branding.
Oh, okay. Bitcoin. I think he calls it the both sides media.
Yeah.
Term. It's a good term.
That's
but that only applies to the liberal media. The conservative media is never both sides. They're just conservative.
Yeah.
I watched, did you see, I don't even like to call it a softball interview. I call it a T-ball interview that Trump did with, was it NBC? His first one back after?
Sir, you have the most beautiful.
So this was, not only was this just lie after lie after lie after lie after lie, that she's like, I don't think that's true. And he's like, it is. Okay. By the end of this, he was telling her, you've been very rude and nasty to me. Like you've been very unfair. And it's like, bro, you're insane. And then I go back and I'm curious because I was looking at like some of these interviews. Do you remember the one that Walz and Kamala did at the table?
Yeah.
This is like question, challenge, follow up. And it's
you
like,
said you went to China in August, but the records here say September, sir. And
it's like 3 minutes on this. And it's like, holy shit. Meanwhile, Trump is like 50,000 criminals come across the border, all rapists, all murderers. And she's like, I'm not sure if that's true. It is next. And it's like, okay. So Jesus. Yeah, that can't be like that.
It really can. And that's why I'm so glad that you and I recognize, and I think other people are recognizing too, we need some strength. We need not weak Democrats, strong Democrats. We need a vision, and hopefully we'll get some of that in these interviews. So we're going to take the next couple of minutes. Let's discuss a little bit about Martin O'Malley. First of all, my first knowledge of Martin O'Malley, who's going to be the first interview we're going to do, was the campaign, the 2016 campaign, which a lot of people see as the kind of the start of the Trump era, obviously because he won, and that there were a lot of problems with the Democratic messaging in that time period. What about Martin O'Malley's background do you find interesting, and what are you looking forward to about the interview?
The most interesting thing to me, I think, is to see him go from, and this is, I think I want to ask about this, is going from like a smaller office to a larger office, and then taking ideas from that smaller office and then manifesting those in a larger office. Because I feel like you have a lot of trouble where you jump from one pond to a larger one, and then you have a lot of trouble kind of like implementing ideas. And I'm actually very curious how he sees himself compared to like a Pete Buttigieg.
Yeah.
Because he's like a very much like a, I want the data, I want the stats, I want to figure out like how to do this. But he's done that successfully in multiple venues, right? As mayor of Baltimore, and then as governor with like the exact same types of programs and the exact same types of ideas. So I'm really curious about that. Yeah.
And he's also worked in the Biden administration on Social Security. Just
head of the Social Security Administration, which is the largest government. Yeah.
And that's an issue, by the way, that is really important and critical now, given that Republicans are like openly talking about, hey, we need to fix entitlements, which is their code words for gutting the fuck out of our social programs. Funny you mentioned Pete Buttigieg, who also got a lot of recognition nationally based on his bid for the DNC chair race. So a lot of careers and stuff and eyes get put, at least from the Democratic Party's perspective, on this race. Okay, I like that as well, because it goes from the local to the bigger, and then to the federal. And then obviously with the presidential run in 2016, he had to be steeped in some issues of federal importance, and obviously being a prominent Democrat for all this time. I think it's going to be super interesting. We're hoping that these interviews are a little bit more personal. You'll get a chance to see who they are as people. And Stephen, like we said, he's going to ask his own questions. They've not been like pre-cleared or anything. And we're super, super happy that there's been such positive reception from the candidates themselves. And we'll be announcing probably more interviews soon, but also from the community. And so I just want to take a moment to shout out DGG, who's been so positive about you getting involved more. And I know that things were dire at the end of the 2024 election. That stream was hard to be on. It sucked. Thank you for bringing levity to it with, look at Pennsylvania, all that stuff.
I had to check in on you so many times because you were like in the corner of your phone, and I was like, maybe Pisco's like looking at the secret election rollout and he knows. And I'm like,
it was not fun, but we, after that, there was an Anything Else with Dan, where we were talking to Brian Tyler Cohen, and we had expressed that we're going to come back and we're going to be fighting against Trump. And this is the first part of that. We think that it starts now. It starts before Trump's term, and it carries through. And so I just want to say thank you to the community for supporting it. Keep supporting it, because it's going to be a long slog. It's going to be 4 years of this shit, and you got to be ready. We're willing to fight it if you are. And thanks again for watching. In a minute, we're about to take a little break while the candidate, gets here. And so you're going to see the waiting screen for a little bit. But any closing thoughts before we head over to...
No, I want to also, thanks a lot for supporting us. I know this is we've changed up content quite a bit in the past 15 years, from doing Zergling rushes to, whatever political craziness is about to go on here. This is like a random thought that I had, and it kind of plays into this as well. It's funny. One of the things we talked about so many times is that like the swing state votes are so important. They matter so much that if you're in one of these places, if you're, Pennsylvania vote, these are such important votes. They all actually do kind of matter, because we took the popular vote for granted, and, Republicans like, I don't care about that. It's like when the girl like turned you down, like, I actually never liked her, right? I didn't care about the popular vote, but look at how ecstatic they were to win that popular vote.
And it feels bad to lose it.
It does. I think it does matter. And I think it says something. Even if they are saying they don't care that they lost the popular vote, look at how happy they were to win it, this time. I think that if you are that California voter, if you are that New York voter, pray to God New York is not becoming a swing state. Yep. If you are in one of these like really blue places, I think it does. I think every vote, every voice matters. And
we can't be abandoning Florida. We can't be abandoning New York. We can't be abandoning California. We have to stay invested not just in the traditional swing states, but also in places where we're trying to reach, and also places that we've taken for granted. And so I really appreciate that message. We're going to go take a break. Thank you guys for watching. We'll be back with Stephen and Martin O'Malley.
Cool.